A Russian-flagged oil tanker has now reached the waters off of Cuba after President Trump allowed it to break a U.S. fuel blockade. The tanker is reportedly carrying nearly 730,000 barrels of oil. But experts say that may only offer limited economic and humanitarian relief as Cuba struggles with a deepening energy crisis. White House press secretary spoke about the tanker on Monday.
This is not a policy change. There has not been a formal change in sanction policy. As the president said last night, we allowed this ship to reach Cuba in order to provide humanitarian needs to the Cuban people. These decisions are being made on a case-by-case basis.
Hasan is one of the biggest social media influencers and political commentators in the world with millions of followers online. He just returned from a visit to Cuba, where he saw conditions on the ground firsthand. Hasan, welcome to The Story Is for the first time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Paint us a picture of what it's like on the ground. What'd you see?
When I first landed in Cuba, I was taken aback by how beautiful everything was. You know, you got the 1950s cars, and it's a tropical island destination. But very quickly thereafter, as soon as we got into Havana, the main city area where people congregate, I couldn't believe the sights that I was seeing. It was very sad. You had homes that looked like they were bombed out. Our tour guide at the time said that this was somewhat of a product of hurricane season and how difficult it is to repair these buildings. And I already had known about the rolling blackouts, and I experienced them later in the day. And it was definitely unlike anything I've ever experienced before. Everything's pitch black. There aren't any traffic lights on. It's crazy. Right, but I was taken aback. I was very sad by all the poverty that I saw, and then I was very angry. It was actually Ben Rhodes who told me that I would get very sad when I first went to
former Obama foreign policy advisor.
Former Obama foreign policy advisor Ben Rhodes, who was formative in the previous normalization agreement with Cuba that Barack Obama had orchestrated, and he was right. It was very sad to see, but then it was very angering. It was very anger-inducing because I felt like, there was a lot of potential on this island that we were just robbing the people of, and it's totally cruel and totally unnecessary. And it was part of the reason why I went to Cuba, because I've heard a lot about Cuban organizing, the Cuban government. I'd read a lot about it.
Sure.
I knew about the island's history of developing sovereignty, but I'd also heard about this blockade, right? And I wanted to figure out exactly how this blockade was harming people directly, and in many ways that are indirect, because the blockade itself is designed to be invisible. It's a system of sanctions. It's this bureaucratic nightmare that basically renders it impossible for the island to do regular commerce, just like any other country. Banks can't take out loans from any other banks. And you, as an American citizen, as a matter of fact, have a lot of restrictions on what you can and can't do, both on the island, or if you wanted to even send money, if you have relatives on the island. It's a very difficult process to directly send cash payments to your relatives as well. It's totally unnecessary. These rules are so arbitrary, and yet they're so damaging to everyone, to everyday Cuban existence.
What were you most surprised by actually seeing it up close and personal?
I was surprised by the resilience. I was surprised by the fact that people, in spite of all these struggles, were still surviving. Right? They had a relatively chill attitude about everything, which was somewhat shocking to me because I feel like I'm a much more high-intensity person. But I was also really impressed with the accomplishments that they've made in places like biomedical in the biomedical field.
What do you think is at this point the biggest need? Because we hear the New York Times reporting about the fact that the power goes off in the hospitals and babies are having to be hand pumped to keep them alive in certain situations. I mean, what do you think is the greatest need?
It's oil
on the ground.
100%. And it's actually totally legal for Cuba to trade with other countries. It's just that America makes it impossible. So what is a necessity is for the grid to come back alive. And for that to happen, they need to have oil. They need to get oil. And I believe there's a Russian tanker that just docked in Havana as of this morning, if I'm not mistaken, with 730,000 barrels of oil, which will provide much needed respite and will allow the Cuban energy grid to survive. They'll still ration it heavily, but this way medicine can be transported on the island.
I want to give you a chance to respond to two criticisms of this trip that have gotten widely reported. The New York Times sort of called you out for the fact that you all stayed in a nice hotel that was very luxurious compared to a lot of what the people on the island are dealing with every day. What's your response to, the allegations of hypocrisy there?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting as well. So we went on a humanitarian aid mission with, foreign dignitaries, delegates, advocates, activists, journalists, and the like. It was around 200, 300, 400 people. I'm not exactly sure on the number. But the American government has placed, and this was fascinating to me, we had to get an OFAC clearance from the Treasury Department just to go, right? Yeah. And the American government has actually created these incredible restrictions that only allow American citizens to stay in four hotels on the island. There are thousands of hotels on the island, but we can only stay in 4. And if I don't stay in a hotel, and these are 5-star hotels, according to the American government, if I don't stay in one of those hotels, I could go to prison for 10 years and have to pay a $250,000 fine. Wow. I'm an American citizen. Yeah. It's so totally ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it.
And real quickly, there are a lot of people that are watching this, especially places like South Florida, that feel like the regime is repressive, that it's been a terrible regime, that it's killed people, and that what you're doing is propping them up. What do you say to that?
I just don't want babies to die. I don't want people to suffer. I think that the difference in opinion as far as like how Cuba governs itself is up to the Cuban population. I just want, as an American citizen, to stop putting our hand on the scale in this incredibly violent way, because the results are unbelievably violent. Collective punishment is a war crime after all, and there is no other way to look at what we've done, especially as Trump has basically said the quiet part out loud and restricted all oil from going into the island. It's impossible to ignore.
Yes, it is. And according to what he's saying, it sounds like this story is not going away anytime soon. Hasan Piker, thank you for sharing your views. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.